Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Operational Services Committee meeting. I am the chair, Councillor Chris Thiessen, joined today online with Councillor Blackmore and in-house Mayor Jackie Clayton. We have no delegations today. I'll call the meeting to order, and we have no delegations today, so we'll start out with the reports, and I'll turn it over to Chief Glavin for a service area update.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. We'll start off with our Facilities Department, where we have just released RFPs for RCMP Parkade slab remediation and design and construction, as well as the Service Center exterior remediation project. In transit, we're seeing a significant increase in transit ridership year over year now that we have our 2023 statistics in. In our paratransit, we're up 197%. In conventional, we're up 34%. In youth ridership, we're up 81%, and on-demand is up 241%. So we are looking at all of those and watching them pretty closely just from a capacity perspective. If anything increases where the service level is significantly impacted, we'll bring that back to this group. As well, heated shelters. These are currently scheduled for delivery early March, and installation will be weather dependent, although with current weather we might be able to get them in sooner, although with the current weather they're less necessary as well. But moving on to environment and parks. Parks is continuing to maintain our outdoor rinks for skating and hockey. As well, crews continue to work on tree pruning projects throughout the city. In transportation, they are essentially done hauling any of these storage piles that were around the city to assist in drainage during the melt, as well as there was a substantial amount of assistance that they delivered for the setup of the Alberta Winter Games. And they are currently dewinterizing some street sweeping equipment and may get a jump on some of that work here if the current weather maintains. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that update, Chief Glavin. All right, fair enough. Just a request from a councillor not sitting on committee. What hours do we operate our snow removal equipment? Is there a set schedule? Like windrow pickups, specifically?
Yeah, windrow pickups. So typically, we try to ensure that we're operating within residential quiet hours, which I think are 7 a.m. to 10 or 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I can't remember off the top of my head exact hours, but typically it would be within those. In residential areas, if we were an industrial area or a priority 1 road, we would not need to follow those quiet hours, so we would utilize equipment as much as possible on any of those. Specifically, downtown would be a good example where we would do that overnight.
Awesome. That's satisfactory. I have Councillor Blackmore with her hand up.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. I have 2 questions. First, Chief Glavin, can you tell me again the tender for what's happening with the RCMP? It didn't sound... Just tell me what you said.
Yep. Thanks, Chair Thiessen. So this is remediation of the parking garage. There was a lot of concrete issues. Rebar was showing it was beyond the state where we could easily repair it, and it is now out for construction to replace that slab.
Okay, thank you. You said slab. That was not what it sounded like online. And my other question is, are the heated bus shelters, are these the ones for the downtown bus transfer station?
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Blackmore. Just in regards to the heated bus shelters, are we looking to put them in any of our more, popular locations, hub stations such as Eastlink Centre or the college? Or are we just doing this one downtown first and then we'll go from there?
Thanks, Chair Thiessen. I'd have to confirm, but I believe Eastlink already has a heated bus shelter. And then we would have this one in the downtown, and I'd have to confirm it at the end of the locations. It's been a while since I've looked.
Okay, yeah, no, just seeing how we're going on placing those different ones there. Yeah, just before I move on to other reports, I'll echo Councillor Bressy's from earlier committee. Speaking of facilities, Lots of great compliments on our staff and the facilities. World class is what I kept hearing over the Alberta Winter Games. So something to put a feather in our cap over and to be proud of. But thanks to you and your team for maintaining those facilities and ensuring that they're as world class for when we have opportunities like the Alberta Winter Games to showcase them. So good work there. Thank you. Moving right along to other reports. Item 3.2, Aesthetically Enhanced Naturalization. I'll turn it over to Chief Glavin to introduce us.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. So Council directed administration to bring back options and budget implications to adapt the 2 remaining years of the Boulevard pilot program to include aesthetically enhanced naturalization where desirable volunteer species didn't exist. Administration's initial review of the project amendment has led to the conclusion that noxious weeds are still not under control at the pilot sites, and that further disruption of the soil will extend that period of time to bring those weeds under control beyond the pilot timelines. So we are not currently recommending doing aesthetic enhancements in those areas if the pilot is what we intend it to be, where we would cease the pilot at the end of 2025. If we did that, we would the money we would be spending on that wouldn't be useful. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. DeVries.
Thank you for that, Chief Glavin, and welcome, Mr. DeVries.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Here to get a little more in depth with regards to the Aesthetically Enhanced Naturalization Report. As mentioned by Chief Glavin, the report itself focuses on the 3 pilot locations that are within the Boulevard Naturalization Program. That is 116th Avenue, 84th Avenue, and then areas on Resources Road. As noted, we were directed to bring back some information to adapt to the remaining 2 years. Just as a note, the current pilot does follow very closely with the City of Edmonton's approach to naturalizing. Obviously, a large focus on scaling back turf maintenance and then increasing the control of noxious weeds. The pilot was initially requested in 2022 and established to evaluate the aesthetic of naturalizing boulevards within our city. Of course, to properly analyze the aesthetic, multiple years are required to allow those desirable species to grow and then as well to sufficiently control any noxious weed concerns that may arise. Assessment of those control efforts from last year does require us to have another growing season, so through 2024, to investigate and then potentially reapply control measures where needed. It is noted, and as mentioned by Chief Glavin, prematurely planting any site where there are still noxious weeds does pose a challenge, of course, as disturbing that soil to plant your desirable species may inadvertently propagate those noxious weeds. While there have been concerns related to the aesthetic itself within the pilot, it is important to note that several changes were made to the pilot last fall. In particular, the city has reestablished mowing behind residential fences within the pilot areas. And so, for example, on Resources Road, this will provide regular mowing upwards of 10 meters from the back of fence for those residencies. The goal there, of course, was to reduce wildfire risks, but that action itself may help resolve some other concerns with the pilot. As noted, an assessment of each location was complete to determine feasibility of any enhanced naturalization. In addition to the comments Chief Glavin made, obviously 116th Avenue will become future traffic lanes, so again, not necessarily suitable for a large vegetation investment. 84th Avenue, we do see a significant presence of desirable volunteer species within that location. And so Resources Road as well, the noxious weeds observed at that site do pose some concerns. So with that, administration does recommend and support maintaining the initial approach to the pilot for 2024. That will allow those locations to continue to establish with desirable species. It'll enable the Parks Department to address any noxious weed controls, and then will also allow us to understand whether broader concerns regarding the pilot have potentially subsided due to those scope adjustments last fall. There are a few alternatives in the report. One does include some costing. Of course, those pilot locations are not likely suitable at this time, but in the alternatives, you'll see enhancement option 1 focuses on introducing natural species of shrubs and tree plugs. Again, this is similar to how Edmonton may approach some of their sites. Enhancement option 2 includes introducing perennial plants and grasses, which is something that we've seen within the City of Calgary's approach as well. So with that, the recommendation today is that the Operational Services Committee receive this report for information.
Great, thank you very much for that, Mr. DeVries. I'll turn it over to my committee members here. I see Councillor Blackmore online has a question, and we'll start with her and then go to Mayor Clayton.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. My question is somewhat related to the report. I notice when we have new construction or new street construction, I know we do hydro seeding to bring in grass, and often the hydro seeding takes place at times of the year where there's a lot of rain and it washes a lot the seed off. We don't re-hydro seed. I'm wondering if we could be doing a better job with those initial applications of grass, or if we're simply, because we've disturbed the land, that in itself is what encourages so much weed on newly grassed or newly seeded sites. I'm wondering if we could do a better job at the front end there.
Mr. DeVries.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. That's a great question. It certainly is something we can take back and discuss with our engineering team. They manage contracts related to road rehab works, where often we see part of the scope of work for those contracts is to re-landscape after the road rehab is complete or the curbing work is complete. So certainly a takeaway we can have is to have discussions with engineering just regarding the timing of when those contractors are going back through to complete their hydro seeding work is a potential option there.
And Mr. DeVries, is there any way when they're hydro seeding that they can apply, is there any way that they can take any mitigating action to weed control at that early stage?
Thank you. Through Chair Thiessen, it is something we can discuss with the engineering team. There's some arguments that certainly the stinkweed that shows up first actually helps support the grass in a bit of a succession, in that it shades it, helps it from being burnt up, and also helps it, to your point, not be washed away because you've got some root structure there. But of course, that's temporary and should be seen as temporary. So we can have some discussions with our engineering team to see if we can improve our hydro seeding through contractor work along curbs.
And if I have one more question, Councillor Thiessen.
Definitely, Councillor Blackmore.
In regards to 116th Avenue, are you suggesting that we should or should not continue with the pilot project there? I was a little bit confused with your comment about 116th.
Mr. DeVries?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Thiessen. The comment was that it is not a suitable location to invest into vegetation enhancements. So it's not a comment around whether the pilot should continue there or not. It's just that it is not seen as a suitable location for the enhancements.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks for your questions, Councillor Blackmore. You're more than welcome to raise your hand again if you've got more questions. I've got Mayor Clayton in the queue, then Chair Thiessen. I do have a non-committee member who wanted to ask a question. I have 3, so maybe we'll get those questions. If not, I will turn it over to my Councillor O'Connor if there are no further questions from committee. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Thiessen. Just to reiterate some of the items that were in the report for those who may be watching. The motion was amended to adjust the fact that the naturalization program in the Mission Heights Ravine will not exist, correct? So mowing will happen in the Mission Heights Ravine, correct?
Thank you. Through Chair Thiessen, that is correct. Adjustments were made to there's multiple scopes of naturalization. The pilot program, of course, is what is in the report. But in speaking to all of the motions from last fall, there were motions made additional to the pilot program, inclusive of the ravine in Mission Heights, where direction was given to commence mowing operations when and where suitable.
Perfect. And just for those who might be watching, south side of 84th Avenue will have mowing in order to mitigate any tree sprouts growing, etc.
Thank you. Through Chair Thiessen, that is correct. The south portion of the 84th pilot area has been removed from the pilot, so mowing will occur at that location.
Perfect. Now I have one more, if I could.
Go to town.
in the report, the motion directed administration to bring back any budget implications. And just to clarify for those who may be watching, there are no budget implications other than was previously discussed, correct?
Through Chair Thiessen, yeah, the motion reading to bring back budget, we do have some numbers that are in the alternative section of the report, but of course the recommendation for today is that none of those pilot locations are currently suitable, so we're not recommending any budget.
Thank you. And therefore no budget implications.
Correct.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for those questions, Mayor Clayton. As stated, I have a couple few here. Mr. DeVries, in regards to the changes that were made to council in some of the pilot areas, how does that work with these pilot programs? Is it impeding them? Are we going to see the results that we want to see because we scaled back some of the naturalization? Could you just discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Thiessen. I don't think that the adjustments were significant enough to change what the pilot can accomplish and what we're directed to look for, which is the aesthetic of naturalizing. The scope change that is most significant to the pilot, of course, is reinstating mowing directly behind residential fences. And so that action will take place, but there still is a majority of those locations that are within the pilot along the roadside. So, for example, on the Resources Road area, yes, there will be mowing happening along the back fence to the pathway, but then the remaining area of the pilot from the pathway to the curb will remain as in the scope it initially intended.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Then the other question I had was just in regards to repurposing staff away from mowing and into taking care more of the pest management of the noxious weeds. What are the labor impacts? Is it a direct off, or like there no impacts to labor, or is there an increased cost to the labor going in to mitigate these noxious weeds from growing?
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Costs are somewhat similar, especially in these first few years. So yes, obviously the mowing costs for that specific location have subsided and decreased, but there are increased efforts. And in addition to controlling noxious weed, of course, there's weed inspection, then there's the controlling of noxious weed, and then there's also the sanitation, litter cleanup that also takes place within those spaces, especially since the vegetation is longer.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And then I have two more questions. One's for Mike O'Connor. I'll save that one for last. But in regards to naturalization, the city's also moving towards doing some urban forest pilots as well. Are we looking to combine what we're doing with naturalization into selected areas where we might increase our urban forest footprint?
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Yeah, it's a great question. I think traditional focus on urban forests have been sort of tree by tree, very grove specific, but there are locations that our staff are identifying that are suitable for urban forest enhancements, but through the naturalization lens. So for example, sections along existing stormwater ponds, Woody Channel comes to mind, where that's an area that we know would likely lend itself well to more of a naturalization approach to urban forests. So rather than planting, a handful of very expensive larger trees, that our staff may look at enhancing it through smaller installations of, say, seedlings or tree plugs that work well within that ecosystem.
Okay, no, that's great. That gives a lot of reassurance because I was going to say, hey, we're being mindful of what we're doing and incorporating everything holistically. So appreciate that. This is a question for Councillor O'Connor here. In regards to Camrose, they too are in the middle of a naturalization project. Have you discussed with them some of their challenges or how their naturalization program's going, maybe with the public or otherwise? Mike O'Connor says theirs looks very good, and have we had any discussions with them?
Through Chair Thiessen, sorry, Camrose?
Camrose, yeah.
Not at this time. We haven't had discussions with them, but can certainly do so.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. I'll look to other members of the committee. I don't see Mayor Clayton's hand going up, and Councillor Blackmore's hand is not up. So I'll thank you for the report, and I'll look for a motion. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Thiessen. I would move that the Operational Services Committee receive this report for information.
All right, that motion is in order, and I'll call it to question. Councillor Blackmore, how do you vote?
Sorry, I'm in favor.
In favor? All right. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. DeVries, for your work on this and your future work. Appreciate the update in the report. Okay, moving right along, we have no further reports, no correspondence, and no other business. So I'll turn it back to Chief Glavin for our outstanding items list.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. Couple things here. So today we addressed item 1295, the aesthetically enhanced naturalization. Item 1230, this one is tied to the federal housing grant or the Housing Accelerator Fund. And as we are unlikely to see that until the end of the first quarter, this will likely get bumped to Q2, but we'll keep it as Q1 for now. The others are currently on track.
All right, thank you for that update, Chief Glavin. I'll look for any questions from committee. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion from committee to receive the report for information as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. That motion is in order. Call to question. And that motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Chief Glavin and staff. This meeting is adjourned. We'll be back in a little bit here for our next committee meeting.